back in 1997, when I was 19 years old. I had just graduated high school, May of that year. So, me and some friends wanted to do something special for my birthday, which was September the 27th. So we went and took a drive about an hour out of Nashville, east, called Montgomery Bell State Park. So we drove down, and then as soon as we got there, we set up camp. Chris and my friend David. We were all 1 year apart. It was Chris, myself, and David. So when we got there, back in those days, you didn't have to pay to camp in certain spots, which now is all have changed, where you will have to pay to camp anywhere on the campgrounds. But back then, there were spots you could just set up and camp for the weekend. That's what we did. As soon as we got there, we set up camp. Chris had a truck that he had a truck camper that he pulled out, and then it turned into a little sleeping area. But I had a tent and David had a tent, so we pretty much set everything up. And because it's a state park, you're not allowed to make a fire. But there were a fire pit that was there that was surrounded by bricks. I think it would just help from starting. It will keep from starting a forest fire. Well, as soon as we did all that, we kind of like hung out, drunk a little bit, and just talked. And we also went fishing as well. Down at the creek was about so many feet, like 30 feet from the camp. Well, this was before, back in those days, we didn't have cell phones like we do now with all the technologies of like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and all these other things that we have now. So back then, when you're hanging out with friends, you're pretty much hanging out with friends and talking, and doing activities. This is exactly what we did. So nothing happened that day and that night. Everything went great. The next day, my friend David had to go to work, so he left because it was like an hour and a half drive back. So he left, and so at that time it was just me and Chris left. So we bade him goodbye, farewell. We'd see him on Monday. Well, after he left, we went back fishing, and then we went to lunch on the campgrounds. There's a restaurant that's hooked up to a small hotel that people could go, and then they also had a few of those little miniature camping log cabins with 2 or 3 bedrooms in it. So they had some cabins down there by the ridge, and then you had the picnic area, which hooked onto in the same spot as the restaurant. So we pretty much went to the restaurant and looked out and ate, and it was a great scenery, and it was a great experience. Then we went fishing and hiking, and then this is where things turned for the worst. Well, we was all hiking, me and him, and me and Chris, and then Chris was in front of me. Then he kind of like, okay, well, I'm gonna go up a little bit further down the ridge, down the trail, because what I wanted to do was just rest. It was a pretty good hike, and I just wanted to rest for a second or two. So he kept walking, and he was out of my view a little bit, but I could still see his face, but it was kind of like at an angle where I couldn't see his body. Well, he stood there and he screamed the loudest scream. I swear to God, he screamed, and he ran backwards. And he came to me and says, "Hey man, we got to get the hell out of here." I'm like, what did you see? What did you see? He says, "Don't worry about it, let's go." Then once we ran back to the campsite, it's like a mile or half a mile down the trail. He stood there by the campfire, and he says, "Look, man, I've seen something that I have never seen before." And I said, "What did you see?" He says, "I saw something that's like a Bigfoot, but it's not a Bigfoot. It's more like a wolf." I said, "So you saw a wolf or a bear?" He says, "No, it's not a bear. It's like a werewolf, but smaller. It wasn't as tall." A lot of the stories that we hear now of dogman, they're tall. They're like 8 foot to 6 foot tall. This thing was like 5'9", maybe 6 foot. Well, he said, I asked him, what did he look like? He said he didn't have much hair on him. He just had hair a little bit on his back, but it's fine hair. It's not like a lot of hair. It's not bushy like a werewolf or these other stories. It's more like a I don't know. He couldn't explain it. So I'm like, well, you must have saw a bear. A bear could probably look kind of like that if the bear is younger, or even a female bear. And he says, he rubbed it off, and he says, well, maybe you're right. Maybe just my imagination. So he kind of calmed down. And then that night, we were just, we had the fire going. Then we had a grill top that hooked up on the on top where you could actually grill. Well, on top of the fire. So I had some hamburgers and hot dogs. We were just grilling them and cooking them. And then we were just talking, but I didn't mention it, and he didn't mention it. So I was like, okay, maybe in the back of my mind, he forgot about it. Well, we heard the loudest howl I've ever heard. It's not like a wolf howling or a dog. It's more like if you ever seen that movie, The Werewolf in London, how when they were walking down the hill, and they heard the howl it sounded like an echo behind it. You take that and amplify that 5 times or 10 times. It's a howl like that, but it's loud. It's like so fucking loud, where it scared me to death. And I sat there. I was sitting there, and I was like, what the hell was that? And it sounded like it was so close, but so far. It was close enough where it was so loud, but it sounded like far away. Sound echoes and sound carries. So I figure, okay, it's probably a wolf or something, but and then my friend Chris, he was shaking, and he was like, it was probably it. It was probably the creature making that noise. And he was like, maybe that was it. Maybe it was coming for us, whatever it was. I'm like, hey man, it's probably nothing. It's probably a wolf. It's fine. Because you hear that you hear that all the time when you're camping. It's just how it is. And then we heard about 5 or 10 minutes after that, we heard another howl, but it sounded closer. It sounded deeper. And then we heard, rustling of the woods, the trees. We heard some branches breaking off, which was very disturbing to me. And then we saw, because the glow of the fire, because there's the fire pit, then maybe 20 foot from that was the stream, and you could hear the stream. And then you had on the other side, the stream leads to the lake. So we was down by the ridge, by the stream. That's where we did a lot of our fishing. So there's a stream, then on the other side, the stream goes a little bit farther away. Then the other side was wooded area. But the fire, the light from the fire only hit so far, so far in front. So we was able to see a little bit past the stream. Well, I swear to you, we heard a splash, like a splash. And we figure, okay, maybe it's a bear or a deer walking across the stream. And I'll be damned if we didn't see this thing come up. But it didn't come up too far. And he kind of had his head turned like he was observing us. Like, okay, who is this? What is this? Like, what are they doing here in my woods? I froze. And Chris froze. And my heart stopped. I swear to God, it stopped for like 5 seconds. And I looked over at Chris, and he was white as a ghost. And he was shaking tremendously, and I was shaking. My hands were shaking. I couldn't really move, and I wanted to run, but I was frozen in my tracks. And this thing was looking, and he was just growling a little bit, and he was showing his teeth. His teeth are very long, like shit, so many inches. At least 3 or 4 inches, maybe 5 inches. His eyes were yellowish, red color. It didn't look like it had a lot of hair. It looked like it had fine hair, but you could see the muscular body. You could see his muscles, and he had he was doing his hands like at a fist, and he opened his hands up. I could see the nails just a little bit. I knew he had really long fingers, a few inches long, and he was just standing there. And then he made a howl like you would not believe. It was so loud it made my body shake. Just the attention of vibration that hit your body. I work on airplanes. I'm a detailer, so I'm around airplanes when the engines start going, and they start everything up, and they do the testing of the engines. That's how I felt. That's how the vibration was. It was like a vibration of fear, of just your muscles are tensing, and the vibration of him howling so fucking loud, and it hurt my ears. I mean, I was so afraid. I didn't even hold my ears, but my ears rung, and it howled so loud. And when it did that, it opened its mouth, and I could see the teeth. I could see the way his eyes looked. He looked like he was pissed, and he did not want us there. Then he ran off. He turned around and ran off. That was the first time, and we stood there for a long time, and then Chris started crying, and I'm like, what the fuck just happened? What the fuck was that? And when you're in denial, your mind is trying to process it, so it's easily to deny it than say, yes, this really fucking happened. Anytime anything like that happens, your brain automatically wants to um, debunk it. This was just your imagination. But I knew it wasn't because he saw the same thing. Even though my head didn't turn, my eyes turned to him, and he was white as a ghost, and he did not budge until he left. To that creature left, that's when he started breaking down and crying. So, let's say another 30 minutes afterwards, I was able to compose myself in a manner that, okay, this has got to, we can't be here. So Chris, we got our shit together, but the whole time we were doing this, Chris was looking back and I was looking back in that direction to make sure that damn thing was not coming back. Well, we got everything packed in the truck, in his truck, and what happened there, it's dramatic. It's the worst thing that could ever happen to anyone, and even to this day, I would never talk about it with anyone. It took me 25 years to even talk about this at all. But I think it's time to come terms with it. It's time. Maybe this is what I need to do. When Chris, before he died in 2000, he told me, he said, this thing ruined his life. This experience ruined his life. So when we got everything packed up, we got into the truck, and I swear to God, as soon as he started the truck up, that thing jumped on the back of his fucking truck on the bed. Because we could feel it. That thing weighed a ton. That damn thing, because I didn't look back. I did not look back. But he did. Chris looked back, says, "Who's on my fucking truck?" And as soon as he looked back, he screamed. He says, "That motherfucker's back." So he put that motherfucker in drive, and he floored it. As soon as he floored it, it fell off. And you can hear it growling and howling. It's all about the howl. I don't know why, but that's what it was doing, because that's what it knows. It did it, I think, to scare us. I don't know. I have no idea, but in my mind, it was trying to kill us. But as soon as we left, we didn't look back. Until we got up to the ridge. Then I looked, as he was driving, I looked back. There's the window. I looked back at the back window, and I saw it by the fire, and it was just standing there howling the whole time. And you could still hear it. You could still hear it, even though we had the windows rolled up and the motor, the race of the motor, we could still hear it. And once we got out, we didn't go back. And I never went back. Okay. This is the saddest part. The time that happened, Chris was never the same. He used to be funny, outgoing. It's just, that's just how he was. But after that, he became very quiet, depressed, very bad when it comes to Chris. And he became very I don't know what you call it when someone has a death wish, and he was very badly involved in a lot of things that he shouldn't be involved in. He took a lot of risk. He used to, whenever he got mad, he used to after that he used to jump on trains when they were going real slow down the tracks. He used to jump on them and then go down like a mile and then jump off. The poor guy had a death wish. But how he died was he, got to argument with his girlfriend at the time. We only lived 2 blocks from each other. And then I was supposed to ride on his bike with him. He would just take me for rides. That day I didn't feel like doing it or something. I don't know what it was, but he got into argument with his girlfriend. He got on his bike and he took off and didn't have a helmet, and he took off because of his anger issues, because of that experience. He killed himself. He killed himself. So that was a bad experience. But with me, I never really gotten over it. He died in August the 10th of 2000. And it's been 26 years ago. And then when we went to the funeral, David, let's go back to Sunday. David came over to the house and says, "Why did you not stay? What happened? Y'all didn't stay the whole weekend?" And Chris didn't really say much. I kind of reserved, like, what happened was like a fucking nightmare. I foresee nothing but the worst that could ever happen actually happened. I did tell David later, a few days later, and David he laughed it out, and he laughed at it like it was a fucking joke. He said, y'all bunch of pussies, you're sissies, y'all just saw a bear or a deer or something, you just freaked out. And I told him, I said, that's not the case. That wasn't the case. We saw a werewolf, or a dogman, but back in those days, there was no such thing. Nobody. The term dogman didn't even exist back in those days. It was either a werewolf or a fucking deer or whatever. And I said that the closest thing I could say is a damn werewolf. Or some kind of wolf man or something. It wasn't of this world. I know that. The way it looked, the way it smelled. Because the wind was blowing in our direction, and I could smell funk. Like I could smell, if you ever smell a bear or a deer up close, that's what it smelled, gamey, and dirty. So, but when it howled, saliva came from his mouth. That thing was just god awful. But it was black, and it had little hair. It had very fine hair. It didn't have a mane. And I've heard the stories a few weeks ago about the dog man and how he looked. But that's not what I saw at all. What I saw was a dog man, but characteristics of a werewolf, or a man dressed up like a werewolf. It stood on just 2 feet. It started off in 4s, and it got up on its 2 feet, and it walked towards the fire, and then it howled. It growled and howled. It wasn't as if it was trying to kill us. I mean, it didn't go after us, but I think what happened was, I think it was trying to scare us off its land. You know, that was his land, that was his domain. So I don't know, but when it jumped on the back of Chris's truck, and you could feel it, and it felt like tons of bricks hitting that damn bed of that truck. The day after, that Sunday, he looked at his truck, and there was spots where the nails, the nails was on top of the hood of the truck all the way down. And when he drove off real fast and he floored it, when it threw that thing off, it tried to grab onto the bed, so it scratches all over the bed. And when it got up, that's when it started howling again and try to run after us. Then that's when it went back to the fire, and it was looking around and trying to find if there was anyone else there, which there was no one else but me and Chris. But after that, I mean, we kept it to ourselves for 20 years. I mean, I kept it for 26 years, and but he kept it until the day he died. I mean, he died with that in him, and that secret. So but Chris was never the same. I mean, he was never, like, before he was very, observative, and he was very funny, and he was just the awesomest guy. But after that, he changed. His demeanor changes. He was very depressed. He didn't. I know he didn't go back camping. We both haven't been back camping at all. Especially in Montgomery Bell State Park. I know it's grown a little bit over there. I believe they build more cabins and whatnot over there. I believe they build a lot, but that spot's still there. And they use that spot for like make out, Lover's Lane type deal, where people will go on the ridge and you can look out over the lake. That's where a lot of people go to make out. So that's why we picked it, because it was the best spot, to camp. Back in those days, you never really talked about things like that. Actually, you kept it quiet. But now with the internet and with all these websites and YouTube channels, you learn more about it now, and there's more to learn. And we didn't have the information then that we do now. So that's my story. I've dealt with it, and I'm glad I'm able to. It didn't change me very much. It actually made me more aware of my surroundings. But that's about it, really. I mean, other than it scared the piss out of me, and that was the worst experience of my life when it comes to almost getting killed, I guess. When you're 19, 20 years old, and you're just young kids, you don't know any better, but we had to leave, and I'm glad that we had the truck closer to us. If we didn't have the truck close enough, or if we was parked, let's say, so many feet, like 100 foot, or we had to really walk, but I think we would have gotten killed. I believe the thing would have killed us, no doubt, because it was so damn aggressive. And I've heard stories of them not being aggressive like that, but this thing was aggressive. I saw the whole body, like it was but it was dark black. But that experience is I would never forget that experience, no matter how long I live. And Chris had to die with that in him. Like, he had to die with that on his mind, without talking about it. I mean, he never talked about it. I never talked about it until just now. So, thank you for listening to this story. It's not false. It's not fake. I've always been afraid to get, called out on it, like, you're lying, or, it was your imagination, or you was drunk or high. I never did drugs a day in my life, and yes, we drunk, but we never got drunk. So, hell, we didn't have enough beer to get drunk on. Back in those days, I couldn't afford it. But, thank you for listening to this story. And hope you get something out of it. Always be aware of your surroundings. Always pay attention to where your surroundings are, because you never know, anything could just creep up on you, especially in the woods. Well, thank you.